Some men break loud. They flip tables. They scream. They slam doors so hard the pictures fall off the wall. I am not one of those men. I break quiet. And if you've never watched a quiet man break, let me tell you something. It is the most terrifying thing you will ever see. Right now, standing in Terminal 5 baggage claim at O'Hare, watching two police officers walk my 21-year-old daughter through a crowd of strangers in handcuffs, her friends staring at me like I'm the villain of this story. I want you to know something before we go any further. I didn't do this to her. She did this to herself. I just stopped catching her. 4 years, Malia. 4 years I caught you every single time, and you thought I'd catch you forever. The sliding doors hiss open. The Chicago wind cuts through the terminal like it's got somewhere to be. And as the officers lead her out, her mascara running down her face, one of her friends, the blonde one, Brooke, always got a mouth on her, turns to me and says it loud enough for half the terminal to hear. What did you do? I didn't answer her. I just watched the doors close. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Get comfortable and keep this in mind. The people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Hit that like button and drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. Trust me, you're going to love it here. Let me back this up, because you need to understand what got us here. And trust me, it isn't what you think. 72 hours earlier, I got off my shift at 4:15 that Thursday. I run a small HVAC crew out of Naperville. Good work, hard work, the kind where you come home smelling like solder and sweat, and you're grateful for the paycheck even when your knees ache. I've had the same '09 Chevy Silverado for 11 years. 240,000 miles on it. I pulled into the driveway of my house on Ridgeview Court. Modest place, 3-bedroom, the kind of house you buy when you're 26 and think you'll grow into it with a family that stays whole. Mine didn't stay whole. But the house did. The house was quiet. It's always quiet now. Molly has been away at Elmhurst, technically. A gap semester, she calls it. Which is a fancy way of saying she dropped out and I'm still paying the deposit on an apartment she barely lives in. I went upstairs. I have a habit, one I never told anybody about, not even my brother, where after a long day I go into the bedroom that used to be ours, and I sit on the edge of the bed, and I open the top drawer of Zoe's old dresser, and I look at her necklace. Just look at it. Sometimes I don't even take it out of the box. I just open the lid, let the light catch the diamond, and for about 30 seconds my wife is alive again. That Thursday I opened the drawer. The velvet box was there, sitting exactly where it always sits. But it was too light. You know that feeling, when something's wrong before your mind even catches up to why? Like your body knows first? I opened it. Empty. I stood there for I don't know how long, just staring into red velvet where a diamond pendant should have been. My late wife's engagement necklace, the one my mother-in-law gave Zoe on our wedding day, the one Zoe wore to every single one of Malia's dance recitals, the one thing in this entire house that still smelled, faintly, impossibly, like her perfume. Gone. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. I felt hollow, like somebody had reached into my chest and scooped something out, and I hadn't even noticed the hand going in. I checked the other drawers. I checked under the bed. I checked the closet, my old fireproof lockbox. Every place that necklace could possibly be, even though I already knew. Some part of me already knew exactly what had happened and exactly who had done it. There's only one other person with a key to this house. I called her. It rang 4 times. When she picked up, I could hear noise behind her. Laughing, a boarding announcement. Wheels rolling on tile. Hey Dad, kind of a bad time. Malia, where's your mother's necklace? Silence. Then too smooth, too fast. What are you talking about? The diamond pendant. From the top drawer. It's gone. I heard her friends laughing about something in the background. Completely unaware, completely unbothered. Like my entire world hadn't just tilted sideways. Okay, she said. And I could hear her voice shift into that flat board register she uses when she thinks I'm being difficult. It's just a necklace, Dad. Relax. Just a necklace. That was your mother's, Malia. And Mom's gone, Dad. Her voice cracked, but not from grief, from irritation, like I was the one being unreasonable. She doesn't need it anymore. I do. I needed this trip. You wouldn't give me the money, so I found a way. Stop being so dramatic about it. You found a way. I said it back to her slow, like I was trying to understand a foreign language. Malia, did you sell it? I have to board. I'll talk to you when I get back. Malia, the line went dead. I stood in my kitchen holding a phone that had gone silent, and I want you to understand, I have never in my life felt a silence that loud. She didn't even pause. She didn't hesitate. 4 years old, she cried for 3 days straight when she lost her mother's old scrunchie down a storm drain. And now, at 21, she sold her mother's actual diamond necklace and talked about it like she was returning a sweater to the mall. I want to tell you this came out of nowhere. It didn't. Nothing ever does. If you're waiting for me to say she snapped one day and did something crazy, that's not what happened. What happened was slower than that. Sneakier than that. It happened one excuse at a time. One she's just hurting at a time. Until 4 years had gone by and I woke up as a stranger in my own house, funding a life I wasn't allowed to be part of. Let me take you back to when this actually started. Zoe passed when Malia was 17. Aggressive breast cancer. 11 months from diagnosis to the funeral. I won't dwell on that part. Some of you know that kind of loss already, and you don't need me to describe it. Some of you don't, and I hope you never do. What I'll tell you instead is what it did to my daughter and what it did to me. Because those two things ended up on a collision course, and it took me 4 years to see it coming. Malia turned her grief outward, sharp edges. Everything was a fight. Everything was my fault somehow, even things I had no control over. The diagnosis, the treatments that didn't work, the fact that her mother wasn't there to help her pick a prom dress. I turned my grief inward and swallowed it, because I was terrified. Terrified that if I pushed back on her, if I made her sit with a single consequence, I'd lose the only family I had left. So I didn't push back, not once, not for 4 years. When she was 18, she took my truck to a party she wasn't supposed to be at, and she wrapped it around a light pole on the way home. Nobody hurt, thank God. She said the roads were wet. They weren't. I paid the $1,200 deductible out of my own pocket, and didn't ask her for a dime of it back. I told myself she was just young. When she started at Elmhurst, she called me from her dorm room, crying. Said the energy of the campus was wrong. Said she needed to find herself somewhere else. I'd already paid almost $20,000 toward that first year, plus the deposit on an off-campus apartment she barely lived in. I swallowed it. Told her to take all the time she needed. I told myself she was just grieving. She never once called me on my birthday. Not one time in 4 years. I always called her on hers. I always sent money, $200 here, $300 there, just for gas, just for groceries, and I never once asked where it actually went. I told myself she was just busy, just distracted, just young. I'd cook dinner most nights, nothing fancy, whatever I could throw together after a 10-hour shift. And on the nights she'd actually come by, she'd sit across from me scrolling her phone the entire meal. I'd ask about her day. One-word answers. I'd tell her I loved her before she left. Okay, she'd say. Just, okay, and I'd tell myself, at least she's here. At least I still have her. Here's what I understand now. Sitting here telling you this that I didn't understand then. I thought I was being patient. I thought I was being the bigger man, the understanding father, the one who wouldn't abandon his kid the way life had already abandoned her once. But I wasn't being patient. I was being a doormat. And she knew it. She knew I would never say no. She knew I would never make her sit in a consequence. So somewhere along the way, without either of us really noticing the shift, I stopped being her father in her eyes. I became an inconvenience she had to manage, a source of money, a safety net she never had to say thank you for, not a person who had lost just as much as she had. The first time I ever told her no, the actual first time, 4 years in, was 11 days before the necklace disappeared. She'd called asking for $2,500, a girl's trip to Cancun with 3 friends from her old sorority, Brooke, Jenna, and a girl named Courtney I'd met maybe twice. I did the math in my head while she talked. $2,500. My mortgage that month was $1,800. I can't do it this time, Malia, I told her. Inflation's been brutal on the business side. My retirement account is already tighter than I'd like. I just can't swing it right now. The reaction was immediate. Are you serious right now? I'm serious, sweetheart. I wish I could. You're so toxic, do you know that? You're literally controlling my life because you don't want me to have friends. You don't want me to be happy. You're trying to ruin this for me on purpose. Malia, that's not... She hung up before I finished. Didn't call back that night. Didn't call back the next day either. I thought that was the end of it. I thought she'd cool off, the way she always did. And in a week or two, she'd act like nothing happened. The same way she always did. I had no idea she was already sitting in her apartment with my late wife's necklace in her hand, looking up the nearest pawn shop on her phone. I had no idea that in less than 3 days I'd be standing in a dingy shop off Ogden Avenue, staring through a glass display case at the one thing on this earth I had left of my wife. And I had no idea that this time, for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't going to swallow it. Something in me had gone still, not angry, not yet. Still, the way water goes still right before it starts to boil. I hung up my own phone, set it down on the kitchen counter, and I stood there in that quiet house for a long time. Then I grabbed my keys. I didn't turn the radio on. 11 miles from my house to that stretch of Ogden Avenue, where every third storefront is a payday loan place or a pawn shop, and I drove every single one of them in dead silence. No music, no talk radio. Just the rattle of my Silverado's engine and the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. You'd think a man on his way to confront the truth would be thinking 100 things at once. I wasn't. My mind had gone somewhere strange and quiet, almost peaceful, like the calm you hear about right before a storm makes landfall. I thought about Zoe. I thought about the night I proposed, down on one knee in her parents' backyard in Aurora, sweating through my shirt, that little velvet box shaking in my hand almost as bad as it had shaken 3 days ago in our bedroom. I thought about the day she got the diagnosis, how she held my hand in the waiting room and said, "Well, at least we've got each other," like she was the one comforting me. I thought about the promise I made her, unspoken, the day we buried her, that I'd hold this family together, that I'd raise our daughter right even without her here to help me do it. Some promises you keep by giving everything you have. Some promises I was about to learn, you keep by finally taking something back. The shop was called Ace Loan and Pawn. Bars on the windows, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The guy behind the counter was named Ray. I walked the length of the jewelry case and stopped. My knees actually went weak. There it was, Zoe's pendant, sitting under ugly fluorescent light next to pawned guitars. "Help you find something?" Ray asked. "That diamond pendant," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Where'd you get it?" "Young girl brought it in yesterday afternoon. Said it was her grandmother's. Gave her $800 for it. $800. A custom diamond piece that cost me months of savings in 2003, traded for a few drinks in a coconut cup. "That's my late wife's necklace," I said. "My daughter stole it out of my house." Ray's face tightened. He immediately pulled out an intake log and a photocopy of Malia's driver's license. "Look, man." She showed valid ID and signed a statement of ownership. "Look," Ray said, "I can hold the piece in my safe. I don't want to be the guy who profits off something like this. But under Illinois law, if it's stolen property, I can't just hand it over the counter to you. I gotta report it to the police, and they need proof of ownership to issue an official hold order." "I have the original appraisal and receipt," I said. "From 2003. It's in my fireproof safe at home." "Bring it," Ray said. "And I'll call the precinct right now. 12 hours earlier, if you'd told me I'd be driving back to my house to grab paperwork so a detective could place a hold on my dead wife's necklace, I would have told you that you didn't know me at all. I would have told you I'd never let it get that far. I would have told you I'd find a quieter way to fix it the way I always did." I drove back to the shop 30 minutes later with the original documents in my hand. The detective who showed up introduced himself as Ron Delgado, mid-40s, tired eyes, the kind of cop who's heard every version of every family story there is, and still somehow manages to sound like he cares. He took my statement standing right there at the counter, cross-referenced the carat and serial markings on my appraisal with the necklace in Ray's hands, and filled out an official evidence hold form. Then he set his pen down, folded his hands. And here's where it got hard. Here's the part where a stranger looked me dead in the eye and asked me the question I'd been too scared to ask myself. "Mr. Garrett, I've got to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it before you answer. This is grand theft. Pawn fraud, too, since she used false pretenses on the intake form. Combined value on this piece makes it a felony charge. Not a slap on the wrist, a felony on a 21-year-old's permanent record. Are you sure this is what you want? Because once I process this warrant for O'Hare, there is no pulling it back." Delgado studied me for a second, then nodded slow like he'd seen this decision made maybe 5 times in his whole career, and it never got easier to watch. "All right," he said. "We'll get a warrant processed. You said she's traveling right now. Cancun. Comes back Sunday. O'Hare. We'll have someone waiting." He looked at me the way you'd look at a man doing something he wasn't sure was right, like I was somehow the monster in the story, the father who was supposed to shield his daughter from the world no matter what she did to deserve otherwise. But here's what nobody in that pawn shop understood. I had been protecting her for 4 straight years, and all I'd built with that protection was a daughter who believed consequences were something that happened to other people. I didn't want to punish her. I wanted to save her. And I was starting to understand, sometimes the only way left to save someone is to let them fall. Ray held the necklace in a small manila envelope while the report finished processing. When Delgado handed it back to me, I held it for a second before putting it in my jacket pocket, right over my heart, the same place I'd carried her wedding ring the day I buried her. I drove home with the windows cracked, that April air finally starting to smell like it wasn't winter anymore. And somewhere on I-88, I pulled my phone out at a red light and made the mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake, maybe some part of me needed to see it, of opening Instagram. There she was, beach chair, turquoise water behind her, a drink in a hollowed-out coconut with a little paper umbrella sticking out of it. Caption, "Needed this so bad. Healing my inner child." Next post, 20 minutes older. Her and Brooke and Jenna and Courtney, arms around each other laughing at something off camera. Golden hour light hitting all 4 of them like a commercial for a life none of them could actually afford. While I was driving home with her dead mother's necklace sitting in my jacket pocket, my daughter was 3,000 miles away posting about healing her inner child with money she got from breaking mine. And here's the part that scared me a little. I didn't feel guilty watching it. I didn't feel a shred of doubt. I felt something closer to relief, like I'd been carrying a hot coal in my bare hand for 4 years, telling myself the burn wasn't that bad. And I'd finally just let it drop. I got home a little after 7. The house was quiet, same as it's been for 4 years. I went upstairs, opened the top drawer, and set the velvet box back exactly where it belonged. I closed the drawer slow, the way you'd close a door on a room you don't plan on going back into for a while. Then I went downstairs, made myself a plate of leftovers, and sat at the kitchen table by myself. Sunday. 3 days from now. She lands at O'Hare thinking she got away with it clean. She has no idea what's waiting for her at the gate. I picked up my fork. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't the one absorbing the hit. I was the one who'd finally decided to stop swallowing it. If you have been listening for a while, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button while you're at it, and be sure you're subscribed. Sunday came slow, the kind of slow where every hour drags its feet on purpose. Around 2 in the afternoon, Detective Delgado sent a text. Flight's landing at 3:40. Terminal 5. Will be in position. I didn't go to O'Hare to gloat. I didn't go to yell. Some of you might think I should have stayed home and let the police handle it quietly. But I needed to be there. I needed to stand in that crowd and prove to myself that when she looked for me to save her, I wasn't going to step in front of the train for her this time. I stood near the baggage claim, my back pulled against a support pillar, watching the arrivals board flip her status to landed. At 4:10 p.m., I saw her. Tan. Sunglasses pushed up into hair that looked expensive. Laughing at something Brooke said, holding a shopping bag, looking completely uncomplicatedly happy. 2 plainclothes officers stepped out from near the terminal doors. Malia Garrett. Yeah? Still smiling. Still not understanding. You're under arrest for grand theft and pawn fraud. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. The shift on her face was instant. Shock, then confusion, then absolute terror. Brooke screamed. Jenna stood there frozen, phone still in her hand, and as the steel cuffs clicked around Malia's wrists, Brooke turned, spotted me standing by the pillar, and yelled loud enough for half the terminal to hear. What did you do? Malia locked eyes with me through the crowd. Dad, tell them it's a mistake. Dad, please. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just stood against that pillar with my hands in my pockets, and I watched the sliding doors close behind her. I watched it twice. Then I turned the phone face down and sat there in my quiet kitchen, letting myself feel whatever it was I was feeling. It wasn't joy. I want to be honest about that. There was no part of me that felt good watching my daughter walk through an airport in cuffs while strangers filmed it for likes. But there was a small, tired, 4 years worn-down part of me that finally exhaled. Like I'd been holding my breath since the day we buried her mother, and I could finally let it go. She called that night, county lockup, one allowed call, and of course it was to me. I almost didn't pick up. I watched the screen ring, her contact photo, a picture from 3 Christmases ago, back when she still smiled at me like she meant it. I answered on the 4th ring. Dad, her voice cracked instantly, already hoarse. Dad, oh my God, you have to come get me. They're saying it's a felony. You have to tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave me permission. Tell them, I can't do that, Malia. A beat of silence. Then, sharper, what do you mean you can't? I'm your daughter. You're right, I said. You are my daughter, and I have failed you. I heard her breath catch, like she thought this was the turn. The part where I always softened. The part where I always softened. For 4 years, I said, I let you treat me like a bank account. I let you take from me and never once asked you to give anything back. I let you disrespect your mother's memory, and I told myself I was being a good father by staying quiet about it. But I wasn't. I was being a coward. I was so scared of losing you that I forgot to actually raise you. Dad, please, you don't understand. If this stays on my record, I lose everything. I'm not bailing you out. My voice didn't shake. I want you to know that. 4 years of swallowing everything, and in that one moment, my voice didn't shake at all. I'm not hiring a lawyer. You're going to sit in that cell, and you're going to think about what you did. And when you get out, you're going to face what comes next. You're a monster. She was sobbing now, ugly and raw. You're supposed to protect me. No, Malia. I'm a father who finally loves you enough to let you fail. I hung up. I sat there a long time after, staring at the phone. I thought about her mother. I thought about what Zoe would say if she could see this. And I knew she'd be heartbroken. But she'd understand too. Because she was the one who taught me, back before any of this, that love without limits isn't love. It's just enabling wearing a nicer name. I had enabled our daughter into becoming someone her own mother wouldn't recognize. That night, for the first time in 4 years, I slept straight through until morning. The consequences stacked up fast, the way they do once a person finally stops standing in front of them. Malia spent 3 nights in county before a judge set bail. Bail I didn't post. Her roommate posted it eventually, some girl from the sorority I'd never even met. When she finally got out, she had a felony charge sitting on her record that wasn't going anywhere. Elmhurst had already gotten word through the local paper, Small Towns Talk, and a Naperville girl getting arrested at O'Hare for stealing her dead mother's jewelry is exactly the kind of story that travels. Her admission got quietly revoked. The retail job she'd been coasting through let her go the following week. Not a good fit going forward. Which is corporate, for we saw the video too. Brooke stopped texting her within 4 days. Jenna a week after that. Courtney posted one performative story about toxic friendships and blocked her. The boyfriend she'd been so desperate to impress with this whole trip. A guy named Tyler who I'd met exactly once and who spent the entire dinner looking at his phone. He was gone by the following weekend. Ghosted. Not even a breakup text. Just silence, the same silence she'd handed me for 4 straight years, finally landing back on her for the first time. She spent 3 nights in that holding cell with nothing but her own thoughts. No phone, no friends, no filtered photos of somebody else's life. Just concrete and the sound of her own breathing. And when she finally walked out of that building into the daylight, she had exactly what she'd wanted for 4 years. No father telling her what to do, no rules, no expectations weighing her down. She just didn't understand yet what that actually costs. In the 3 weeks following her arrest, I did the work I should have done years ago. I called the landlord at her Elmhurst apartment, paid the early lease termination fee, and turned in the keys. I pulled my name off her credit card and canceled her phone line. The financial bleed that had been draining me for 4 years finally stopped. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, she came to the house. I saw her through the front window before she made it up the driveway, wearing the same worn hoodie she'd worn to her mother's funeral. She walked up to the door and tried her key. I watched her face when the deadbolt didn't turn. I had rekeyed the locks that Monday. She knocked. I opened the door, stepping out onto the porch. Beside me sat one suitcase, packed, zipped shut. "What is this?" Malia asked, her voice trembling. "Your clothes? All of them?" Her face crumpled. "Dad, I have nowhere to go. I have nothing." This is the part where the old me would have broken. This is the part where I would have said, "Come inside. Let's talk. Let's figure it out. I'll always be here for you no matter what." I said some version of that sentence for 4 straight years, and every single time I said it, I taught her a little more, that nothing she did would ever actually cost her anything. Not this time. "You have exactly what you wanted," I said. "Freedom. No father telling you what to do. No rules, no expectations. You're finally free, Malia. Isn't that what you called me, controlling, toxic? Well, nobody's controlling you now. That's not fair." "Fair." I kept my voice level. "You sold your mother's necklace for a tan and a few nights of cocktails in a coconut cup. You told me it was just jewelry. Well, this is just a house. Go build your own life. You're on your own now." She stood there on the porch for a long moment, mouth open, waiting for me to take it back. I'd taken everything back for 4 years. Every ultimatum, every "I mean it this time," every line I drew in sand that washed away the second she cried hard enough. I didn't take it back. I picked up the suitcase and set it down in front of her feet. Then I stepped back inside, and I closed the door, and I turned the deadbolt. I didn't watch her walk away. I didn't need to. I'd spent 4 years watching her walk all over me. I figured I'd earned the right not to watch this part. That evening, I made myself dinner. Really made it this time. Not just leftovers reheated standing at the counter. Grilled a couple of Italian sausages on the little back porch grill. The kind you get from the butcher counter at the Jewel Osco on Route 59. The kind Zoe used to make every 4th of July. I sat outside and ate slow, listening to the neighborhood settle into evening, kids on bikes, somebody's sprinkler running 2 yards over. After, I went upstairs, opened the top drawer, took out the velvet box. I sat on the edge of the bed and held it in both hands the way I used to, before any of this happened, before a stolen necklace and a pawn shop and an airport full of strangers filming my daughter's worst day. I opened the lid. The diamond caught the last of the evening light coming through the window, same as it always had. I spent 4 years trying to hold on to a daughter who didn't want to be held the way I was holding her. I told myself if I gave her everything, every excuse, every dollar, every second chance, she'd stay close. She'd love me back the way I loved her. But she didn't stay. She took. And when she finally took the one thing in this house I couldn't replace, I understood something I should have understood a long time ago. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's hostage-taking, wearing a kinder word. And I was done being a hostage. I closed the box gently, set it back in the drawer, closed the drawer. I didn't feel angry sitting there. I didn't feel triumphant either. This was never about winning something, I just felt quiet. Still. The kind of still you only get to feel once you finally put something heavy down that you'd been carrying so long you forgot it had a weight to it at all. And for the first time in 4 years, sitting in that quiet house with the last of the daylight fading through the window, I finally had it. She sold my wife's necklace for a girl's trip. She said it was just jewelry. She got nothing. And I got my life back. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. I will see you on the next one.